I'll just do it slowly first.
Yeah.
So the bars that you adjusted these ones.
Yeah, right, yeah. So it's playable there. Play all these high, all these things in 16th. Emphasize the sforzati and in between a little bit less. And if you make the ritenuto a little bit earlier and 53 at the beginning or 53 at the 7/8, and you can also have a little bit more rubato on the highest notes. And maybe practice it with ya pa da da pa da di da da ti da 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 ti.
Do it as a rhythm.
And take maybe constantly.
Hold on here.
Yeah, like fermatas constantly. Da 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 da. I would. Yeah, maybe you can you do it? Yeah, da da dee, da da dee. Just away with this. I think it will be more organic when this staccato is away. Yeah, da da dee.
I don't want it at all.
Because you can.
Magic!
You will do more.
What's the title of this composition?
I had none, so
So
I thought it's viola is.
I think it's great.
It was written for viola, so.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
It's
and can you?
The dedication is the name.
Yeah, dedication is the name. I think it's brilliant. And also when you have altviol, which is the Dutch name of it, but you've called it viola. For a Dutch person, that's quite special, I think, too. Yeah.
It's also a nice name, viola.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So writing something like this for the viola, you've written a lot of string works as well, haven't you? What's the really difficult thing writing for a solo instrument and a solo string instrument as opposed to, for example, writing for ensemble as a composer?
Yeah, well, obviously that you want, if you think in more voices together when you think in a polyphonic way, so you want to have it also when you write for a solo instrument. That makes the difficulty often, and to do it as economic as possible and write it that then the player is comfortable with it, and that's the difficulty, I think, especially when you are not a string player like me. And and that's the only way you get it really well done is work together, like we do now.
Yes.
That's the best way to experiment on and that should the whole life should be an experiment. And you can practice with music to make it an experiment, and there's no, we don't get paid for this, so that's the great thing. We have time.
Yes.
That's not
we do what we want to do in the time frame, and
and that's great. That makes it great, and solo you have to really do it often. I think like Bach and Bieber and that kind of they were very good players, of course, but they have written so much for it. So I've written a sonata for violin. It's long ago, and a couple of solo works, but most works I've written are for more instruments. Every instrumentation has its own difficulty often, and writing for solo string instrument, that's the most difficult part. Is often when it gets polyphonic.
Yes.
In
and
some
in
way,
this particular piece too, you have written actually bowings in, which actually make a lot of sense.
I hope so, yeah.
So how do you learn something like that as a composer? Is that just from experience of working with string players?
Yeah,
as
well, getting better through trial and error.
I mean that's very impressive from my experience of playing it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so you know, I did the chamber orchestra. I chamber orchestra. I wrote lots of stuff for them. So when I was conductor there, and so I learned a lot of things about that. Just talking with people, making errors, or making mistakes, or making and trying to not always to hammer everything true, but to keep possibilities open. That's also nice to just work with the people, and working on the floor.
Yeah,
on the work floor. So you can only learn then. And,
and if you choose to write for a particular instrument, the inspiration often comes from the people that you're working with. That's right as a composer, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I met the great Samuel Adler. He's one of the important persons still living. He's 96 now in the US, and he said, well, the most important thing when you write music is to the best way to do it is to imagine for whom you write, so that you get into the person itself, and that you then you get the best out of it. So that was also, I had you in mind for this piece, so I know you, so I know a little bit your temperament and your possibilities, and so and that was I think that's always a good advice to couple the player to your thoughts, and it can be very interesting, I think. And maybe sometimes, like I think Xenakis, he said, well, I don't, the players, I don't care. I have an idea and I want to. That's also an idea, but then you get very frightened performers. Often there are many books with terrified performers that have to perform Xenakis. So that's also a way, but this is also not easy, and also it's also an experiment, and I like to have the experiment is always
and this is sort of a version 2, because the version 1 was not possible for me on the viola. So the last page was problematic in some way. And there are details and details of turning around, and is that really frustrating for you to lose the original idea?
No,
do you fight with that?
Because it's a cooperation between the performer and the composer, and that makes living music, I think. That makes it so interesting, and that keeps it. That makes it also different from performing from art that is painted or something. That's just finished there. But music, you have to. It's very abstract, and you have to make it come alive.
Yes.
Or you have electronic music, and you have to you have put it like a painter into the, and then it's always the same. You put on the button and it's always the same. But when you perform it, you will do it 100 times different.
Yes.
But that's the great thing about performing music on the stage, and it will never go away.
No.
We have now all this artificial intelligence, but it will never take over a real living performers. I think.
I
only
think so too.
maybe for the idiots that the people that don't have a soul anymore. They are only on their phones and they're only listening to Spotify.
They're learning a particular language that becomes their comfort zone.
Yeah, but no, I mean more that when you have to go to real concerts to feel the energy of the performance and to cooperate with the performers on the stage, and that's you can't replicate that in a machine or artificial intelligence is not possible.
No.
To have this experience together with the performers and with the audience, and that makes life worth living, and also that's the reason why we as musicians have this trial and error and this you are practicing your ass off every day for this feeling of you can't have this feeling when you put on a button, when you do it yourself on the stage and you get this reward back, then you get energy for your life.
Yeah, it's a transfer of communication and the permeation of all the different factors that come in. Every performance is different, as you say. Every audience is different.
Yeah.
Every experience is different with the sound and the venue and this one is going to be amplified.
Yeah.
So for me, that's also not a usual thing for me to do.
Yeah. But maybe they can also add
something to it.
Some because sometimes it could have, especially in the faster movements where you have to make it a little bit more staccato, then it can also with a little bit of reverb.
Reverb could be interesting too.
It could be a little bit more round.
So it changes again, doesn't it? With that, which is fascinating.
So.
Yeah, and
it always has to be an adventure and that's the nice thing, because we are living in a time when everything has to be figured out before you do something. It has to be safe, it has to be blah blah blah, everything has to, but that's not life.
No.
Life is when you step out and you don't know what happens today, and you are full of
suspense,
of hope that it will come all together.
Yes.
And that's the nice thing of
being a musician is really a lot like that, isn't it?
Living on certainty is shit, and living on hope is and love is the greatest thing you can have. So and that's music.
It is, and this is a beautiful gift. So thank you for joining in with this whole
you're welcome,
project.
and I think it's nice material for a bigger piece, but maybe for a sonata or something, because there are a lot of things in it, material to make more out of it.
And what I love is there's the Chrisitian Blaha rhythmic factor that comes into it too. You always write pieces with, and it's really quirky and fantastic the way that this comes in. And this is also a challenge as well for bowing articulation, and
it keeps us both.
This has kept me going for a very long time. And it will continue to season itself as I perform it more.
Yeah, very happy with your dedication to the music. That's composers need performers, and performers need composers. To have a contemporary sound.
Yes.
To perform and to create together. That's the greatest thing. Otherwise, it's like a museum. You only go to a museum when you go to most orchestras. It's always you go to museum.
All the pieces, all the works. And
that's good to nurture also. But on the other hand, you have to make new things.
Yes.
To have a society that's creative,
and also starts to be able to get used to a different form of music as well.
Of course.
We don't want it to just stop there, and classical music is unfortunately, not always upheld in our society as one of the most important things.
No.
Even though it should be, it's the soul. I think a lot of expression through soul.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But, thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
See you on the 28th.
Yeah.